Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Better Business Processes. Thank you for joining today. So we'll go through some introductions first of all. So my name is Sam Connor. I'm part of the sales engineer team here at Interface, and we're Bitrix24 Gold Partners. We're based in the UK, the US and Hong Kong, and we offer a full range of services to assist you with Bitrix24, starting off with pre-sale support, so we can discuss your requirements in detail and help you with your evaluation of the Bitrix24 system. If you're happy with the system and it can meet your requirements, we can provide implementation services to help build out the system for your specific requirements so it works the way you need it to work. If you're interested in an on-premise edition of the system, we can provide our own hosting services, and we can provide ongoing dedicated support to ensure you get the most value out of your Bitrix24 system. Okay, so in today's webinar, we're focusing on better business processes, but let's first of all just introduce you to what Bitrix24 actually is if you are evaluating the Bitrix24 system. So Bitrix24 is essentially a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 35 different tools that you can use to help you manage your business. And there are over 10 million customers around the world that use the Bitrix24 system, and it's available in two different editions. So we have the Bitrix24 Cloud, and we also have the Bitrix24 self-hosted solution. In terms of pricing, so prices start from approximately $49 per month for a cloud-based basic license, and the on-premise edition starts off at the Business 50 license, and that's available for $2,990. It is called a lifetime license, but please bear in mind every year you will need to renew your maintenance subscription, which will cost approximately 25% of your license fee. Okay, so today's webinar is Better Business Processes. So we're going to be focusing on how we can create business processes inside the Bitrix24 system. But first of all, before we go into the Bitrix system and look at those processes, it's important that we understand actually what a business process is, and also the different types of business processes that are available inside Bitrix24. So a business process inside the Bitrix24 system is essentially the ability to create a process, and it allows you to execute and monitor workflows on different objects inside the Bitrix24 system. So that can range from CRM items such as leads and deals. It could be on tasks, or even HR items such as leave requests or expenses. And within the Bitrix24 system, we have a very advanced editor tool with simple action blocks allows you to create very advanced processes which can be fully customized to the way you would want your processes to be created. And we can see here we have different types of business processes inside the Bitrix24 system. So first of all, we have a sequential business process. And a sequential process performs a series of consecutive actions on an item from a predefined start point to a predefined endpoint. So if we just go into our Bitrix24 system here, this is a sequential business process. So what we can see here is the start point. So we're able to initiate the actual process from a particular trigger, which we can decide inside the system here. We can then go through different action blocks here that we can customize and create inside the business process designer tool until we come to the endpoint here inside the workflow. So that's a sequential process. We also have a state-driven business process, and a state-driven process, the key difference here is that you do not have a start or an endpoint. It is simply a series of statuses. And on each status, there is a trigger that will then manage the child processes on that particular process. So if we go back into our system, you can see here, this is a state-driven business process on a document. So it's completely different to the sequential process here, where we have a start point and an end point. So this kind of business process enables essentially full control over a document's access permissions. So in different statuses here, such as the draft, publishing, and approval stages, we're creating specific events that will be triggered when we hit that specific status on the document. We also have CRM automation, and these can be really powerful tools. So if you do use the CRM system, you really want to be taking advantage of the automation rules inside the system. So inside here, we're in leads, for example. What we can do is we can go to automation rules. And then what we can do at different stages of our lead process. So we can see here, new inquiry, arrange call, in progress. All of those stages are completely customizable for how you need your sales process to work. And at each stage, we can then create automatic actions, either internal actions. So it could be, for example, creating a task for the responsible person. Or here we can send out email communications, which, for example, can be dynamically populated with information that gets sent out to the lead. So we can run automations and triggers as well. So a trigger here can automatically update the stage that your lead is at in the sales process. So CRM automations can save you significant amounts of time inside your CRM system. And then we also have here quite new features within Bitrix24, RPA and SPA. So that stands for Robotic Process Automation and Smart Process Automation. So here we have robotic process automation. So we are able to set up workflows very similar to using the business process designer tool. So if we go to the new employee onboarding, for example, this is a bespoke process that has been set up with different stages. So you can see this looks very similar to the CRM system, and it really does take a lot of the framework from the CRM. So we have stages, and we can create automation rules at each stage inside the process to automate activities as we create a workflow, such as the new employee onboarding process. And so that's robotic process automation. We also have smart process automation, which is back inside the CRM system. So we can go into here, and what we have the ability to do is create essentially entities which can be attached to the existing entities, such as leads, deals, or contacts and companies inside your CRM system. So if we go into our contact database, we can see a smart process automation we've set up here is a client feedback process. So inside here, we can attach that process to the contact. So it allows you to create new entities, which allows you to store information directly with your contacts inside the CRM system. So that's a look now at the different types of processes available within the Bitrix24 system. And what we need to do is actually now understand how we can run these different types of business processes. So essentially, we can run business processes in a variety of different ways inside the Bitrix24 system. So for example, in the feed section, where we can manage HR and admin processes, we have the ability to trigger requests such as leave or expense requests into the system. We mentioned about the CRM. So on most areas of the CRM system, such as leads, deals, contacts, and companies, we're able to run business processes. On documents, we have the ability to run processes, also on lists, which are essentially tables of information inside your projects. And also then we can run automations on tasks. Now that's available on both the cloud and the self-hosted, but on the self-hosted session, because we have access to the source code, we can create more advanced processes. So we also have the ability to run processes on, for example, maybe user profiles or in a custom area of the Bitrix24 system. So it just allows you to have a lot more control as to where you run processes if you did have a self-hosted edition. So let's now go into our Bitrix system and let's just take a look at those locations in some more detail. So first of all, we mentioned about HR. So if we go into our feed section, and if you're fairly new to Bitrix, you'll see your feed section is actually in this collaboration section. So if you're unsure where it is, it maybe you just need to open up the collaboration area and you can then see your feed section there. And then to run HR processes, we can go into the more section here. We then have a workflow area, and then we can select the workflow that we want to run. So for example, if I wanted to request some holiday leave, I can click on the request leave form, and that opens up the form where I can now start to input my information to actually start processing that new request. We mentioned in the CRM system how we can run automations, so in leads and deals, but we can also run business processes as well. So if we go into a lead, for example, if you want to manually run a process here, you have the option here. So you can see the box here. This will open up the business processes that are available in that particular entity. So that's something to be aware of. You can run different processes on different entities. So that's inside a lead here. But if we go into a company, you're going to see that the processes that are available are completely different here. Okay, so we can see the different types of processes available on companies. We mentioned how on documents we can run processes. So we saw a state-driven business process earlier on. So if we go into our company drive area, what we can do inside here is we can configure and form all of our different business processes here that are available on documents. Now, just to make sure if you don't see that, so you've got the available Bitrix system, you need to activate the business process button here inside the settings. Okay, and now we can move on into our projects. So inside projects, if we go into look at our lists, lists are essentially where we can store tables of information associated with our projects. So for example, here we have an expenses list associated to this particular project. And inside here, we can set up and configure workflows which can be associated with those expenses. So if I go into here, for example, and check our current expenses, I could run this approval business process, and that will send the expense to the project manager to either approve or reject inside the system. And then I can filter through this information so I can see what's pending, what's approved, and we can then capture all of that information. Okay, so let's look at having the functionality to store tables of information in projects and running business processes. Okay, and just to point out before we continue with today's webinar, if you do have any questions as we go through, please do add them into the question box on Zoom or on our LinkedIn channel, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. We have had some questions come in previously in terms of the ability to actually create business processes. Where can we in the CRM configure the settings to create a business process on a lead? So if we go into our system and if we go into the CRM, then what we can do inside here is if we go into our CRM system, we've mentioned how you can create different business processes on different entities. So leads could have different processes to deals, for example. We can go into our CRM settings, and then within here, we can go to the automations area, and then we have the business processes section here. This then opens up all of the different entities within our Bitrix24 system. So inside here, if you wanted to then, for example, create a new process on a lead, we could go into the lead section here and start to create a new business process, which is specifically targeted to that particular entity inside the CRM system. Okay, so that's answer to that question. If there are any other questions, please do add them into the question box. We'll be able to run through those for you during today's intervals. Okay, so moving on now to go back on to look at the actual ability to create those business processes now inside our system. So what we can now do is actually look at how we can build our own processes. And we're going to look at a few different ways that we could create these processes inside the system. So first of all, what we're going to do is look at how we can create a process using the sequential methodology. So that is using the business process designer tool. And then we'll look at how we could use automation rules as well to create a process. Okay, so let's now go back into our CRM system, and we'll go back into actually deciding which area we want to create that business process. So let's say we want to create a business process on deals specifically. We'll go into our settings area. What we're going to do is go into the automation section. So this goes back to answer that question that we've just had. So we want to create a deal process on deals. And what we're going to do is look at the stage of the deal and run specific actions when the deal is at that particular stage. So we're going to create a new template. Okay, and first of all, this opens up the business process designer page where we need to give the process a title. So let's call this deal stage change, because we're going to be looking at when the deal changes stages. And we can decide when this is run. So for example, are we just running this when the deal is added? Or is it when something is changed? Or you can leave them blank and have it when you want to run this manually. So we'll do this when there's any changes made to the deal inside the system. So this opens up the business process designer tool. And on the right-hand side, we have all of the different action blocks that are available to configure our business process. So what we want to do first of all is create a condition, because we're going to be looking at 3 different stages of our deal. So we need to have a condition in place. And now let's go into the settings on this particular deal. What we can then do is we can go into here and look at, we're going to be looking at a specific piece of information, which is the deal stage. Okay, so what we can do, just to explain inside here, this will show you all of the different pieces of information associated with your deals, because that's what we're working on right now. And so let's go into here. We can see all the different stages. We're going to be looking in our UK pipeline. So we can see all the different stages here that are available for the actual process. Okay, so let's move this to the quote stage. We're then going to say if the stage equals quotes, let's save that condition. And I'm just going to update this now for the other stages as well, because we're going to be looking at 3 different stages inside the system. Okay, so that's going to be where we send invoice. So what this is going to be doing is looking at what stage the deal is at for us continuously. When we're at that stage, we're going to run specific conditions on the business process. Okay, let's say when the deal is actually marked as 1. So we now have the 3 different stages that we're going to be focusing on in this particular process. When we're at the proposal stage, when the invoice is sent, and when the deal is marked as 1. And now what we want to do, when we're at that particular stage inside the system, we want to do particular actions. So for example, if we're at the quoting stage, we may want to, for example, do a credit check on that particular customer. So this can then create a task that we have to perform when we hit that specific stage inside the system. What we may want to do actually as well, for example, when we get to the sending invoice stage, we might want to notify the sales manager so they're aware we're at the sending of the invoice. That's the stage we're at on this particular deal. And then what we could also do, for example, is we could, when the deal is 1, let's send a thank you to the customer, thanking them for their order. So we can run very different actions at every single stage of the system here. And this then really, using the action blocks, allows you to build completely customizable processes inside your Bitrix24 CRM system. So that's a look at using the business process designer tool. But if we just go out of there now and let's go into the lead section of our CRM system, and let's just look at how we could use automation rules to automate activities as well. So for example, when we're at the new inquiry stage of our lead process, so that's the first stage that we have inside the system. So every time a new lead comes into the CRM system, that is going to be the stage that we hit first of all. So what I want to do is when that happens, we're going to send out a thank you email to this particular lead, thanking them for their inquiry inside the system. And the way we can do this, so we have this set up already, but let's now go in and recreate this automation. We can go into the add section here, and we can go into the client communications area. So we have the different capabilities here to communicate with our clients. We're going to choose the email functionality. So we can click on email. And this opens up the template that we can then use to populate information for this email that is going to be sent out to the lead. So first of all, I'm going to add a subject. Okay, so we've got our subject in there. And then I want to dynamically pull information from the CRM system, thanking this lead. So inside here, I can pull items from the CRM. So I'm going to pull the lead name there, and then I'm going to populate the rest of the information for this particular template that will be sent out to the customer. And we can see here when we're running this, I can decide actually when this automation is run. So let's say the lead comes into the system. You may want to run this actually maybe in an hour's time once the lead has been in the system. So I could configure this. So I say let's say in 5 hours time, I'm going to run this email automation. But I actually want to run this immediately. So as soon as that new lead is logged in the system, we're going to send this email communication out to the lead. Okay, so let's save that information inside the system. And the great feature within the system as well, if we just go into our add-ons area, if we go into the contact center, this shows us all the different communication channels we could integrate with into Bitrix24. So for example, we could set up the live chat systems, or we could set up website forms, for example. So we can go into here, we could have a website form embedded onto our website. And then with that, when information is then submitted from that form, it can automatically feed that information into the CRM system. And that can then automatically trigger that particular lead email that we have already created into the system. So I'm going to fill in this particular inquiry form, I'm going to fill in my information here, and I'm going to submit that form into the system. So that can be embedded onto your website, for example. And if we now go back into our lead database, we can see that the lead we've just added, Jerry Robinson, has automatically fed into the system. And we can see the automation has taken place. So that email, which is dynamically populated with Jerry's information, has now automatically been sent out to Jerry, thanking them for their inquiry. So you can start to see how using business processes, automation rules inside the system can save you significant amounts of time. You don't need to be manually sending out email communications to your leads or to your clients. We can do this automatically using business processes. And this is going to save you significant amounts of time, so you can focus your time on more important aspects of your business. And that's something we really want to get out of this webinar today, is how processes can save you time so you can use that time on other areas of your business. Okay, so that's a look at how we can create business processes inside the system. Now let's take a look at actually how we can trigger business processes. So we've just seen there, for example, how using a website form, I could then trigger an automation to be sent out, that triggering that business process inside the CRM system. But there are a variety of ways that we can trigger business processes. So first of all, we can trigger based on creation, just like we saw there, where a lead is created. We can then automatically trigger either a business process or an automation inside the system. It can also be on updates. So if we update a stage, for example, on a lead or a deal, then that can trigger a process. You can also manually trigger a process. So as we're going to see later on, when we go to create a leave request, we'll see how that automatically can then manually feed the information to our manager to approve or reject the request in the system. We also have the ability to use webhooks as well. So you may want to actually trigger a process maybe from an external source. So especially with the self-hosted edition of Bitrix, we can trigger an external trigger. So it could come from another system. For example, maybe your finance system, for example. If you raise an invoice in your finance system, that could then trigger a process within our Bitrix24 system. And a really popular method of doing this on a self-hosted is actually how we can create rules on mailboxes. So with the self-hosted, we can create a rule on a mailbox. So when an email comes into that mailbox, we could automatically create a help desk ticket inside the help desk module. So you start to see how with the self-hosted edition, there are advanced processes that we can run inside the system. So if I go into the control panel of this is on the self-hosted system. So if you're on a cloud system, you won't have access to a control panel. This is only available for a self-hosted system. But essentially what we can do is we can integrate mailboxes into the system here. And when we've integrated those mailboxes, we can then create rules on those mailboxes. So let's say, for example, when an email comes into a particular mailbox, we then want to create a help desk ticket inside the help desk module. So from that can automatically be created inside the system here. And we can then see all of those tickets automatically logged inside the help desk module. So again, this can start to help you save time inside the system. As mentioned, though, the help desk here that you can see, and also the ability to create those rules, it's a feature that is only available on the self-hosted edition of Bitrix24. So if you're on your cloud system right now, you're wondering why you can't see this, it's simply because the features are not available on the cloud system. The self-hosted system has this more advanced capability. So if you want to create very advanced processes, the self-hosted system is really the system we want to be looking at with you. Okay, so that's a look there at how we can trigger business processes inside the system. Now let's take a look at actually how we can create those processes, look at some live examples inside our system. So first of all, what we may want to do inside our system is create a project. So let's say a new customer has come on board. So our sales team have won a new project. What we then want to do is actually bring those groups of people together so we can now manage all of the tasks that need to be completed for that particular client. So first of all, what we can do, we can open up the form here and we can see all the pieces of information that we need to complete to trigger the start of this particular business process. Now, you don't need to be worried if you're looking at this form, for example, there are other pieces of information maybe that you want to be able to see on this particular form. That is all completely customizable. So we can decide what piece of information is, for example, mandatory on this particular form, or you could decide maybe actually the actual pieces of information here, you don't want to upload a file. We can remove different pieces of information on the form as well. But let's first of all fill in this particular form. So let's go into here and give the client project a title. We're going to choose the manager for the project and also a designer. So we've got different roles on this particular project inside the system. And then what we're going to choose is a deadline for when we estimate the project is going to be completed for, and I can add a description as well. Okay, and then we can choose a type of project. Now, this is important because based on the type of project we run here, this is going to configure actually what tasks are automatically added into the project. So this is the condition here. So you can start to see how you can use conditions to really customize the types of processes you run inside the system. So let's now submit that process, which is going to trigger the workflow. Now, I've marked myself as the project manager, so the process has come to me to do a final approval. And let's approve this inside the system. So we can see we've now been notified, and we can also see tasks have been created inside here. So if we go into our work groups area and we go down to look at client 123, we can see this has now automatically created a project group inside the system, and it's automatically created specific tasks that need to be completed inside the platform. So that can really streamline the processes. You could have all of the tasks built in the back end of your business process, ready to be created when you run that business process. So if we go actually, and let's take a look, if we just go back into our feed area, and we go back to where we just designed that particular workflow, you can go into your workflow directory here, and this will show you all of the workflows inside your Bitrix24 system, all of those different business processes. And if we click on the new project, I just want to show you actually what that business process looks like in the Business Process Designer tool. So we can see here we've got the start points, so we can sell this as a sequential business process. And on the left-hand side, this is where we were filling in the information. So we're adding all of the information about the project. And then we saw here we had a condition whether to select project A or project B. So we went with project A. So that then created the scoping task that we just saw in the project. But if we went down project B, the tasks would have been completely different. So you can start to see how you could have lots of different types of project types inside your process. We can then select the appropriate one inside the system, which will then create the relevant tasks. And this type of process could just save so much time, but also it can prevent human error. So this is a right or wrong here. We can select the type of project, and then it will automatically create those tasks. It will remove any human error from creating those projects inside the system. Okay, so that's one way we could create a project, but also let's look at maybe a completely different way we could actually create a project in the system. And I think this is probably one I prefer, is actually the ability to automatically have that project created. So we've got another workflow here where we're creating a project with the tasks, but we're going to run this automatically. So rather than manually running this process, creating the form and then submitting it, we're going to run this process as soon as the deal, so we're in a deal here, hits the deal 1 stage. So when our sales team is working on this particular deal, once we're progressing through those different stages, so this designing and specifying deal, once we move to the deal is 1 stage, we're going to automatically have that project created inside the system. So we can see here, we've been notified that the project has been created. So if we go back into our workgroup section, we can see the design and specifying steel deal has now automatically created a new project inside the system. And again, it's created the relevant tasks that need to be completed. So it's just to give you a flavor here of actually 2 completely different ways you could run a process of creating a project. You could run it manually and fill in a form with specific pieces of information, which will then create that project and the task. Or here we're running it as soon as a deal is won in the system. So that's going to notify our project management team that a new sale has gone over the line. So that could be another way we could run that process inside the system. So it's just something to think about, the different ways we could actually run that process inside the system. Okay, another type of process we could run is the ability to manage a leave request. So if we go into here and request leave inside the system, again, what we could do here is we could fill in the information on this particular form. So again, very similar in terms of how customizable this is. You can decide what pieces of information need to be added into the system here. I can select my absence type. So that will then go to my manager to either approve or reject inside the system. And once that has been approved, then it will go into our time and reporting section inside our CRM system. Now, the actual ability to use that feature, just to make you aware, inside here, if we go into our absence chart, we would see all of the absences inside the system here. But one thing as standard the process doesn't do is give you the ability to manage entitlements, so leave entitlements. That is not a standard feature on the Bitrix24 system. So we've created a bespoke plugin that's available for the self-hosted edition, and that will automatically allow you to add a specific leave entitlement for every single user inside the system. And if we go into the user's profile page, they're able to see their remaining entitlements, what's pending. They can see what's been approved and any pending leave inside the system here. So it gives you a lot more control over how much holiday each user is able to have access to inside the system. And you're also able to, if you have maybe accrued some leave at the end of your holiday year, that can be rolled over to the next holiday year in your system. So with the self-hosted system, we can take the standard business processes and really add another layer of control on those processes using the self-hosted system. Okay, so moving on now, just to look at some of the differences between the cloud and the self-hosted. So most of the tools we've seen here are available on both the cloud and the self-hosted system. They both include the editor tool for processes on documents, HR, CRM items. Now, depending on your cloud system, for example, if you wanted to run business processes on leads and deals, you would need at least the professional or the enterprise cloud system. On the basic and standard cloud, you do not have access to the business process designer flow. So if just to make sure you understand this, if we go into our deals, for example, you would not have access to this ability here to create workflows in the business process designer tool, which are then run and triggered on different stages of your CRM. So you would need at least a professional cloud system. I'd say really the main difference and the benefit of a self-hosted system is the option to run processes on extra modules, so such as on user profiles, or the ability to create rules on mailboxes, which can then trigger the creation of a help desk ticket in the help desk module. You have a lot more advanced capability with a self-hosted system. And when we say self-hosted, it doesn't mean you have to host locally. It can be on a private cloud, or here we can provide our own hosting services interface, so we can manage the server setup and maintain that server for you. So you just need to see it as a private cloud hosted solution. It can still be accessed from anywhere, from any office that you may have, for example. Okay, so in summary today, we've seen how business processes can be run on a variety of entities inside your Bitrix24 system, such as documents, CRM items, lists, and HR. We have a really simple drag and drop workflow creator tool, so you can build really advanced and powerful workflows inside the system. Now, if you need help with building workflows, that's where we come in really as a gold partner here at Interface. We do specialize in building workflows inside the Bitrix24 system. So our team here can help if you need support to build workflows. And in terms of business processes, they can also then be triggered in lots of different ways. So from manually creating them, automatically, but also by external sources such as emails or API calls. And really, what we want people to get from the Better Business Processes webinar is how processes inside Bitrix24 can save you time. It can prevent human error. And that means you can manage your business in a lot more control. Okay, so coming soon here are our up and coming webinars. So we're here every other Tuesday. Please do register on our Interface website for the ability to come to these webinars. We hope you find these really useful. And in the meantime, if you need any more support or help, please do contact us, sales@interface.com, and one of our team will be happy to help you with any requirements that you have with the Bitrix24 system. Thank you for your time today. Bye for now.